Okay, so we have Miss Morri Pace, one of our panelists for the day, who's going to speak with us today. Let me get to that slide. Morri, am I saying your name right?
Yes, you are. It is. It's Morri, short for Morissette.
Okay. Well, it's so good to have you, and I'm super excited about what you're going to talk about because, believe it or not, when we put out our national survey, we get back, thousands of responses. But this year, we've seen this huge number of rural responses, which means basically the entire nation jumped in the deep end. And so the interest and the need and the reach out about really what you're going to talk about is high. So I'm super excited to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining. Should I pass you screen rights? Do you want to share your screen?
That'd be great. I can share the presentation.
Okay, good. All right, so hold on. 3, 2, 1. Okay, you are now presenter. Yep, we see it.
Okay.
Okay, good. So over to you then. I'll stay on mute unless I'm needed.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go ahead and move this into present mode. So hi, yes, I am Morri Pace, and I am with Powhatan County Public Schools, which is just outside of Richmond, Virginia. And so this is a little bit of our plan and how we've kind of gotten started this year. And I'm going to take you back a little bit farther than just this year. Just to let you know a little bit of my background. I have been in education for 21 years. I started off as a high school social studies. I also spent 7 years as an online teacher within a division, and I'm a SIM professional development. I thought it would just be good to also share my slogans. I always do a slogan and a motto every year for myself and for my team. And so, as all of our educators know, it's probably grace and more grace. It's something I have to remember for myself and then also all of the people that I am working with. And then the motto that I set for this year is innovation, not perfection. There's so many things that teachers and students are doing for the first time, and if we strive for just perfection, we will burn out. So I've invited them to try new things and then figure out what worked well and what didn't work well. To ask the students, I enjoyed this type of assignment, or this type of assignment I struggled with, or in this platform, I didn't get enough directions in order to support my learning. So we are asking them to keep trying different things and knowing that it's a very different year and we're all going to work together. So in thinking about what to present, I wanted to back up just a little bit, and I'm kind of focusing on instruction, our instructional model, and then also what we've done with PD and what we've been able to do with technology. So I came into the division 3 years ago, and we have an instructional framework called DL 421, and we did training and things like that, and then a new strategic plan came in 2018, and then we kind of transitioned. If we were going to tell our staff that we were going to give individual pathways for students, or gradeway pathways, or career pathways, then we really needed to give pathways for our teachers so they could understand what it looked like and felt like in order for them to want to make that for their students. So we started with professional development menus. So teachers can pick the things they feel like that will allow them to grow throughout the year, and then we have different coaches that support them in there. And one of the things that came out of that is we had so many teachers that had learned so many things as we started a conference. And so our first conference was in August of 2019, and it was just Empower. And it wasn't a technology conference. It's really just a best practice conference. And we invited anybody and everybody who wanted to come. We had lots of outside division participation and presenters. And doing the menus and doing the conference really allowed our educators to stop being those people that receive PD, but were integral parts of creating PD and providing it for their colleagues. And so we saw tremendous growth in doing that model that was structured by the division, but allowed for individual voice and choice at the staff and teacher level. So as we said, one of our goals from the strategic plan was personalized learning. And this wasn't necessarily as robust as our previous speaker was talking about, and just letting them kind of go through material at their own pace, because we still have a lot of students that are going to need supports. So how can we create pathways for students to get what they want and what they need to achieve, and still also have our traditional setting in some formats as well? So we have always offered online classes through Virginia, and we have a designated high school virtual teacher, but obviously this year we have broadened that immensely. And so I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of background. And so going through last year is we actually broadened our PD menus, and we collaborated with the schools as well as the division to say, what did each school need to have? So every school got their own menu to choose from. And so it was very tailored to what the students needed at that particular school that needed to be reinforced, or things that were of interest by administration or teachers at the school. And then we created our profile of a graduate, which is another guiding document, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And so then we're on our way to implementing the profile of a graduate and working with communication and collaboration methods. And then we're going to see that, COVID hit. And so we're working hard on all these things, and we had to kind of switch gears, but still keep in that mindset of our documents, our guiding philosophies are still the same philosophies, no matter whether students are in the building or out of the building. So we transitioned to create in-depth supports for our teachers and students. We did struggle a little bit because we did not have a learning management system for our pre-K through 5-year-old or 5th grade. And so we kind of created a calendar, and we created a website, and we kind of jerry-rigged some things so that parents could kind of see what they were doing, but it really didn't go over. It was done well, but it was a struggle for everybody that was involved. So we actually this year bought Schoology as our LMS at the secondary level, and so we were able to purchase seats for all of our students. So now there's one unified platform for the whole entire division, which was one of the requests by parents. And also parents really felt like they wanted to be able to see everything in one location. So that was some of the things that, that we did this year. And so instead of being able to do our Empower conference like we wanted to, we actually brought it in-house, reviewed all of the sessions that had been submitted, and looked at them from the distance learning, or now we call it virtual classroom perspective, and to see which ones would really help our teachers and which ones would help move us forward. And so instead of having it in just one day, we provided it over several days. So this is our profile of a graduate. And as you can see, one of the things we really wanted to encourage is lifelong learning, and this idea of stewardship and citizenship, specifically within our community, and also equity. So our community doesn't have as much diversity in the rural population that we have, but it has a lot of equity diversity as far as socioeconomic. So we've got a lot of diversity in there. And then I just wanted to give a couple of things when we talked about we gave them robust supports, is again, using a little bit of my online background, is what did we need to provide to teachers? And this is just some snippets from some documents, but really going through before teachers, and we had been transitioning from this for the 3 years I'd been there, had been using the LMS as like a place where teachers get to put things they want, instead of it being a learning management system that supports students and growing their education. And so transitioning that and looking at what are the key parts for effective distance learning. and really getting them to understand the pedagogy in an online environment is very different, while also realizing that you've got students in our community, they have no internet. You know, the rural population this year was really hit hard by the internet crisis, where it's not necessarily that you can't afford it, it's that you can't get it. And so, you know, we were able to give out hotspots to our staff, and then also hotspots to our students. We also put buses out in central locations and partnered with businesses as to where can students go in order to download materials that they can then work on at home. We do have the fortunate capability of providing every student a Chromebook. That is something that we have been working on for 5 years. We are still waiting for one more order to come in, actually, for our elementary students to be a full one-to-one with the type of Chromebook we desire for them. But I think that put us ahead of the game compared to some of our other rural friends in Virginia that may not have had that technology. But again, the internet was a big deal. We had admins running around making copies for students, and they would come and pick things up. We also had parking lots available for and expanded our bandwidth of how far you could receive the web outside of each one of our buildings so that they could have a place to look. Another thing as far as thinking about, you know, distance learning is that really trying to get our teachers to understand that you can't just put in the highest level of material right away for students, that you need to provide a couple of activities that are going to go over the critical skills or the critical materials in order to then allow them to build upon it later. The giving a PowerPoint is not enough, and that's not the end of it. And so then what are you going to ask teachers to do with that material later? How are you going to chunk it? How are you going to add another level? How are you going to add some higher practice activities in there? And then finally, really you need the student to show you by either an exploration or analyzing activity that they can do it on their own. They know it enough for them to be self-directed learners. So that's something that we really just kind of struggled with. And also just, you know, we gave them checklists so that they could go over and look at items that we thought were important for every student. So this is when I said the Empower Cancel was canceled. So then what we did is we took all of our sessions and we were actually able to provide PD over, as you can see, several months. And we had some sessions that were required, but then when it says a choice session, there could have been somewhere between 3 to 12 sessions that were being offered at that choice. And all of this was being done by our staff members. So as the division, we are blessed with having a lot of support, but most of this was done by the teachers. They wanted to share what they had to learn. And isn't that the most exciting thing when we think about our students, that they're excited to share what they've learned? So I think we're seeing a lot of really improvements in our staff and the ability to share and to teach others because we've been moving this direction in professional development. And then I just thought it was really cool if you see how many hours of documented professional development we had this summer with our staff members. And then as we said that we had kind of moved to a model of PD that should look like what we're doing with students. So this is a sample for this year of the middle school of their choice board for PD. So these are all the different things that are offered to you. And, you know, as it says, you can pick one that's in the blue, and then you can pick 4 that is the green. And then we ask them every year just to earn 10 points. So that's a little bit of that information. So now we're getting ready for school to open, and what method are we going to use? We had several school board meetings, and it was my joy to actually have to run those through Zoom so that we could show them through YouTube since they were closed to the public. And so we finally had on July 28th, there was a decision by the school board of what model we were going to be using. So while we had been prepping as a division team and providing PD all throughout the summer that would support all staff members, we now knew what our mandate was, and we kind of had to jump on the bandwagon. And when we say they chose the hybrid model, that was the fullest extent of opening in which they were allowing. So I'll show you in just a minute that we also have a full virtual school going on at the same time. So we got admins on board 2 days later and had them work up in their leadership teams. What were their plans for their school? What were things they thought would be barriers? We had admins and counselors and other people running through the building measuring out 6 feet. So from nose to nose, how many students, how many desks could we fit into a classroom? So then we could understand how to do scheduling. And so then we had CARES money was offered on August 4th for us to actually open up and provide more PD for teachers. And this time it was the option to get paid. And so we had lots of paid PD, and we were kind of running around crazy there for about 3 weeks, getting that all done for teachers. And so that could have been planning with a coach involved, or it could have been, I enrolled some of my tech trainers into the ISTE course over the summer. So we had a lot of variety for teachers to be able to use. And so by August, we then had survey, and I'll show you those results. Then we had all of our staff members back by the 17th, ready to roll. We spent 3 days distributing all the Chromebooks for K through 12. Our 3rd through 12 got a Chromebook to take home and stay. Our virtual students, K and 2, got a Chromebook as well, but our K through 2 students that were in the hybrid did not get a one-to-one Chromebook to take home, although they would have one in the building for them. And then we had all of our students come back face-to-face by August 24th. So here's just some of those survey results when we asked our staff and our families if the hybrid plan was chosen, who's coming back and who's not, and what type of instruction would you like to have. And so you can see that we had a lot of students that wanted to come back and choose the hybrid plan. And so then we had to ask them after that about transportation and some other things. But so after we got this information, we were able to start the scheduling process. So the goals for us for the returning students was obviously safety, and then also our health plan. But then we really wanted to create these pathways that allows parents the choice of which instructional model they wanted. So that's going to be the information that came back in the survey. And then we worked to actually have every single family in the division had to be called if they didn't respond to the survey, so that we could know which option their child was picking. I mean, at the end, admins were even going out to houses to call parents to see, so they could schedule students. So everybody was full on board, working long days. And then we wanted to reimagine virtual learning because there was, in the state of Virginia, the school board said that because of equity issues, we really weren't holding kids accountable for completing work, and we needed that to change. We needed it for students to know that there is required work that's going to be done, and this is going to be for grades. But I will still tell you, one of our things, especially at the secondary level, is we've got students that they got used to going with dad and working on the site or working on the farm. And so we still have some of those students where we're having to, have conversations with the families about, it's time to come back to school. And, even if you're a virtual student, you still need to make sure that you're coming to your Google Meets and that, you're taking time out of your day to make sure you're completing your work in the timely manner that's being provided. Some of our guiding principles, obviously is meet students' needs first. And, we've had, again, admin coming out to houses, special ed has been going out to houses, and then also making sure we're providing that equitable access. And so we've really worked hard on that. And as a division, having our communication centralized, as somebody was just talking about before, we have a website on our website, we have help videos for families of how to navigate. We have, hey, if you have a technology hardware issue, this is the email that you're going to contact. If your student's having, I don't know how to complete my assignment and the teacher hasn't responded, there's one that comes to the ITRTs. So we really tried to think through of how do we get the families to know how to communicate with us the best. You can see we also then, how many kids can you fit on a bus? And so we were lucky to see that, a lot of the families were going to actually, bring their own kids to school, which freed up a lot of bus spots. And so then you can look at who will need a hotspot, or whose internet speed is not fast enough for it to actually do things like hold a Google Meet. And so then we had to provide for all of those individual families, and have something that worked. And so we got Khajiit hotspots and we got Verizon hotspots, and that's something we're very fortunate for the CARES money, as long as it continues, that we can afford in that. We also continue to have the buses out. We have now just opened up our schools several days a week during the day and in the evenings, so that we can try and remedy this idea of students not having Wi-Fi and helping them. We got USB files so that they can download it here at school, and then they can go home and just plug in those files from a USB drive. This was our pathways. So you could choose, parents could choose pathway 1. And we did have a significant amount that did. And then you had pathway 2. And so that's where we are now. We are in our hybrid learning phase, although we do have some students that, if someone tests positive or, they break their foot, they're in a short-term learning situation, and then we were returning to hybrid. One of the things we had to do, because we are small and it's a shift in staffing, is that we had to say that if you chose to go virtual, you have to stay there until the change of the semester, so that we could have classroom sizes not changing as much. Obviously, there'll be new enrollees. As far as buses, we just couldn't have people changing willy-nilly. Although I do know for our students that have not been successful, that were ELL or special ed or just high-risk students, we have had some students come back into the building, or some students switch to the virtual learning based on individual needs. And a lot of that's done through our administration at the schools, calling and being like, what's the barrier, and how can we help you? So we also have just a document for all the different schools where teachers can put in, this is what I've done to try and help this family, and the student still is not completing any work or going on to any Google Meet sessions. And then at that point, the administration is taking over, so that the teachers don't always have to be working so hard on that process, that they can focus on the students that are in front of them, and we can figure out on a higher level, what's the big picture problem that we can help for this particular student. And we are all waiting for the day of full return, but we have not gotten there yet. So what does it look like for our elementary? So our elementary, for the first 3 weeks of school, everybody was in a hybrid method, except for pre-K. And then after 3 weeks, we currently have our pre-K through 3rd grade are back in our elementary schools full-time, within 4th and 5th still being in a hybrid model. And we're actually looking at that to see, how much space is there? Would we be able to bring back our 4th and 5th now after we've had, a little bit of our younger kids, and it seems to be working. Is there a model that we could use to bring that next group of students back as well? So our focus for instruction here was procedures and routines. I always tell my teachers, if you have not taught your students how to do it with the technology, then you should not be assigning it to them. You need to be modeling it in the classroom, and you need to be practicing it, whether that's through a Google Meet or when you see them face to face. But you can't assign kindergartners a Google Doc and tell them to insert pictures if they've never experienced anything like that. So really going over with them, what is the level that your students can master? What have they previously been taught? And what are the skills that, even though, yes, you're a math teacher or you're a kindergarten teacher, like, it's your job now to build those technology skills. Because at any moment, these students could come out. And so those are going to be really, really critical for us to have those now for students so that they can be successful, which is why we chose those first 3 weeks of school to really have teachers and students practice the skills that they would need in case we went back to a full virtual environment for everyone. We also then have our fully virtual, which are 5 days of instruction. We do have a specialist, a curriculum specialist assigned to each grade level or an ITRT, so that they have PD and structural help and just someone to talk through the pedagogy of how to do this. They have an outline schedule that they work on for every day, and they provide that to the families once a week, so the families know what time things are happening. They've got breaks in there for lunch, and they've got breaks in to kind of go outside or have some free time. So it's not like they're sitting at their computer for the whole time. They usually start out with like a morning meeting, and then they review what materials need to be due by after lunch, and then they give the students some autonomy time while the teacher stays on the Google Meet so that they can help, or they might have individual pullouts that they're doing during that time. And so again, the technology that we're using is Schoology is for our LMS, and then we have those daily Google Meets with the instructors. One of the things, again, is really trying to figure out the enrollment. We have already hired 3 new virtual teachers for elementary since the beginning of the school year. And then that means a lot of change movement inside of our classes. So reorganizing those and identifying, what students actually need to get changed based on their situations, especially if it's an internet situation. In our secondary schools, we have, again, also a hybrid and a virtual. The virtual one is they could have a couple of different options. There could be their English 9, there could have been enough students to make a virtual block of it. Or they could be in a specialty class like sports medicine. And so those virtual students are going to come in when the hybrid block is happening, and they're going to Google Meet into that class to join that class for instruction. And then we also have a purchase product called Apex, and for our online environment. And then we have Virtual Virginia. Something Virginia does is they have created virtual classes, and they have allowed anyone in Virginia to have all of those for free for this year. So we have our own Powhatan virtual school, and we are able to enroll students into that and have lots of different classes running that are monitored by our fully virtual teachers for the secondary. Those that are in the hybrid model, it's an A-day, B-day schedule. So then they come for 2 days, and then they have 3 days of work at home. And then, it flip-flops if they're a B-day. We are still on the block schedule, so the students have it for 90 minutes. And then we are very excited. The first week of school, our first couple weeks of school, all of the admins and the counselors and myself, we were running around so that the teachers could have lunch. We were covering all the lunches, and so in individual classrooms, because the students weren't allowed into the cafeteria yet. So that was a big, and even the superintendent is covering your lunch shift. So you can make sure that teachers did have breaks during the day. And then, and so they are now there. And then we just opened up today was our first day where students could schedule to come into the building for support. So that might be our ELL students coming in to get special supports, or the special ed students, or really one of the things that's key is our students that are taking like a science or an art or a CTE class, like welding. You can't really do so much welding online, and we are a comprehensive high school, so we all have welding and electricity and carpentry right here within our own building, because there's only one high school in our division. And so those teachers were very excited to have the students come in and be able to do the hands-on work so a virtual student can come in, or a hybrid student can come in on Wednesdays if they schedule the time. And even with that, I met with a parent for 2 hours last week just to kind of go through with her student who had some special needs of making sure that she understood how things are working. So what we've been doing is a lot of instructional support. So, for technology, again, we have the Chromebooks, so we have a one-to-one environment. And then we have all those internet hubs and our hotspots, and we have designated website and contacts for tech support. And then for our families, we had been providing, we did 7 sessions for families and daycares, because we do have a lot of kids that are in daycare at the elementary level. And so we were even training them, and then we posted videos on the website. So we are also still working individually with families as they need it. And then, as we said, on Wednesdays, that's when they can come in. We also have all of our virtual students are assigned a virtual coach. So it's somewhere between a caseload of 10 to 15 students. That virtual coach, who may be their teacher, their job is to contact the students, see how they're doing, check on their mental health, check on their completion, ask them if there's some other kind of supports that they need, and be a liaison for that student as well. If there is something that is consistently wrong, that they can also make sure that they're speaking to the correct staff member to help get that resolved. And we also still have home visits if the family agrees to that. And sometimes the home visit is just going and standing outside and talking to the family. We are providing all of our supports for instruction that we would have at the elementary level. So all our interventionists, all of our PALS tutors, all of those groups are also back and working with students. Our OT, they are all doing it virtually, or when the student comes in on a Wednesday. So what are some of the other things, like that's kind of some of the logistics. And so what are some of the things that we did that we really wanted to make different? Is from my online background, having that clear, consistent platform and organization method we thought was very important. So we brought teachers in for 3 days, and they gave us all their ideas, and we created what we call a master class. And so then we made one for every different grade level and department. So like an English 9 or an Art 1. And so all the teachers that would teach Art 1 were all then enrolled into that master class. So that's going to allow teachers to be able to streamline their planning. They can easily go copy a course. The folder structure was already built in there. We had already made it so that all of our division level supports were already embedded into a folder. So all they had to do was copy that folder into their classes. And then it's an embedded page. So that's a Google page. So we can continue to add that to every course in the division without having to go and touch anything. So when we update our Google page with a new video or a new help document, then every course in the division gets it. And so we have that for parents and also for teachers. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And then we just say that you should publish your work, or at least your overview, every Friday so that families can plan over the weekend of how they're going to get to their work, especially if it's a virtual secondary student, because they can have different schedules. We've provided a lot of support, and we're continuously providing support, and we are continuously changing the support that we provide. So one of the things, I'm just going to click on some of these links to open them. One of the things that we did this year is, and I can actually show you, so this is our Schoology Master Course. So again, the teacher can just put, it can be a page or it can be a folder that has the current week's work in it. So the first thing the student does is come in here, and then they would see directions. This was their welcome video at the beginning of the year, or it could be their welcome video for the week. And then this is just my sample, but then you can see like the course overview is kind of where you put all of that syllabus information. We had made the course resource folder where, again, teachers could put extra things in here, but we did have our documents that were already prepared for students. So again, these are our live pages that are in every single course. So if a student needs to know how to do something, then they can just come here, and we're continuously adding to it. We just found out last week that the cache and cookies were messing up a couple of things. So we make a video, make a steps on how to do that, and then we upload it into the class, and then we ask all first period teachers to go through that with your students. We did make a direction sheet this year, and we gave this out because our elementary got access to Schoology about 3 weeks before school started. So maybe it was a little bit longer than that, but so they really started the school year with not knowing necessarily how to do everything. So they have a paper copy of this, but then they also have a digital copy, and so we went all the critical things that they would need. And so that's just something, quick and easy that you can make for your teachers. We also made an expectations document of this is what we expect out of your classes. Here's the non-negotiables. Here's the things that you can choose. And so getting those clear expectations for the division of what's allowed and what's not allowed has been helpful, because we can refer back to that. We also had some clarification of, when do you use the different tools in Schoology? So again, we made, when you want to do this, then this is the tool that you should use. And we're even finding that, this page is great for our secondary that have had Schoology for quite a number of years, but over elementary, we're actually redesigning it, and we're just telling them like 2 things a week. And we're going to go in and actually individually work with a grade level. So the specialists and the ITRTs are dividing up, and we will go meet with every grade level team in the division once a week to tell them kind of, hey, here's their Schoology best practices for the week. And then also, we also created a weekly checklist that I send out every week, just to remind everybody. Again, this was that document that I showed at the very beginning. It used to be digital learning, now it says virtual classroom. But this was also like, hey, you want to do basic activities, right? So then here's our suggestions of what would you do. Like we have Play Pause It. This is a type of assignment within Schoology. So we gave them, here's an idea for Flipgrid. So we gave them some ideas so that they don't have to come up with all of the ideas themselves. And again, some of the teachers really like this, and some of them are like, this is complete overload. So we take them as individuals as they need. So this is the high school or the secondary weekly checklist. And so you can see I update it with what folder should be at the top and what their organization is for their folders. One of the things that we have seen is also talking about virtual instruction is that they don't have explicit directions. And I always tell them, you're only going to get back what you ask for. Also, they're not necessarily giving directions on how to submit something, or is it submitted? And so we are working on our teachers to really focus on that And then we also have all of our video supports. And so this is what kind of looks like now. So now we've given everything out, but people are still needing to learn. And so what we heard from our staff is like, give us it in chunks instead of giving the big document or the list of all the videos that you can watch. So we are now creating, starting last week, a tip of the week. And so we will share out one complete tip that will be really helpful for them. And then we ask them to practice that for the week and reach out if they need help. And then we'll also start looking for it in their Schoology classes within the next month. We also, at our last instructional team meeting, went through and was like, hey, what do we see in our elementary ones? What do they need? And what order does it need to be? And what are the different parts of it that needs to be? So I just threw a clip of that up there. That we're one of those things with divisions right now, where no matter if you're rural or not, you need to be ready to change and adapt and meet the needs of your teachers so that they know that it's okay to adapt and meet the needs of their students. And so that is it for the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I just kind of rolled through everything that that we had, but if there's anything that you want to ask or anything you want clarification of or anything that I may not have touched on, I'm happy to address those.
This was a lot of work. That's the first thing I want to say. This is Leilani Cawthon. Amazing amount of work in a pretty short period of time. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah. Again, it did help. I have a great team. And having an online learning background in this stage of the game, even the assistant superintendent told me it was very critical in the way that we could address things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, here's what I'm actually looking at just as an outside, research learning council. Mm-hmm. You've partially mutated to a choice arena, right? So. Mm-hmm. Parents, students now have choice. The research that we're looking at on a national scale is looking like choice is permanently on the table. Whether or not you go back to the traditional design of learning, the community outside, the consumer community of learners is going to have a perpetual desire for continued choice in the structure of your delivery execution. What are your thoughts on that so far? Because you showed the fantastic survey you did, mm-hmm. And you're rural, so it's a little bit of a different sort of community thing than we find in the big urbans and the suburbans. What are your thoughts on continued desire for choice?
Well, I think it also, our county we have a private school within it, and we do have a large homeschool population. So it is, one of the things that the previous speaker was talking about is that we've actually recovered some of our homeschooled families by allowing them to be this virtual school. And from my understanding, I don't think we see that necessarily going away. We had never provided that type of instruction for below 9th grade before. But I think it's one of those things that it's going to be a needed thing for a lot of different reasons moving forward. And so I would see that it would be in the interest of the county to continue to have an option like that, so that A, we're keeping all the students that we can, but B, there are just a lot of different needs. And I remember being a virtual teacher and I had anyone from a person that was never finished their GED and needed to take like kind of a refresher class to ice skaters that were competing in national competitions that were that were taking classes with me, or a band kid who really wanted to take band in the building, but they also had a couple other APs that they wanted to be able to take. And so it allowed the flexibility for students and families to meet their needs instead of having something forced upon them. So I do see that it will continue, but in what capacity we're able to finance it, I think is the other part that drives that question.
Yeah.
Right now we've got 9 full virtual elementary teachers and 2 special ed teachers. And the secondary level, we've been able to kind of assume them into the current class offerings. So I think the elementary would be the biggest one that would be, how do we keep that sustainable? And is it that we are going to continue to say, there's one virtual teacher per grade level, for the division, and but once it gets over 20 kids, are we going to stop, or are we going to then continue every year to just change the role of the teacher based on the needs of the enrollment population? And I think that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, well, I like where your mind went with that, because what you're doing is the mental gymnastics of how do we move from the industrial age bureaucratic structure of class grade to choice and full personalization? How does that affect the organization of the staffing service to that, re-swizzled execution model? And you're already feeling that mutation and doing it. So the real issue is, what does the end point look like? And we're going to be talking about that a lot in the next hour. What does this look like when technology is deeply embedded in such a way to exalt the teaching role, so that teachers are maybe offloading some of their load, the old ways that they basically had to do everything. They're the central pin and also bottleneck for all the execution into their cohort of students. How do we take off some of the things that they've always done and give them more teaching time, direct instruction, being just on tap in terms of helping individuals maybe that are a little bit behind, and then taking a look at the kids that are way ahead and going, hey, I need to give you some extra stuff. You can go a little bit deeper into, maybe you've topped out in math. Let's have you study ancient Egypt, which is where math originated. Let's do some interesting things. In other words, the future to us looks like it's not going to stop mutating. And you're in the middle of that right now. And you're probably experiencing more than what you said, although you gave us so much incredible information just now. You're probably mentally noting other things, like the struggle of the individual teachers to carry this expanding load.
Yes, and I would say right now a lot of them feel very overwhelmed because it's just so mentally taxing. So like one of the things that we did is, so that if we returned, it wouldn't be a big deal as far as scheduling, that the students have, we have the students of the secondary really only see their kids for 80 minutes a week. So even though they're coming for 2 days of school, they're only coming to second block once. So, I was working with one teacher today, and I love what he was doing. It was, here you go, you guys do this stuff, you watch this stuff, you read this stuff, and then the classroom time is discussion.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn? How did you use it? What would you have done differently? That kind of thing. And so I love to see that teachers are really, some still think, well, they can't do it if they don't see me. But some are really getting to the idea of, I'm just supposed to kind of provide stuff and support who needs support, but then provide something that's engaging. And then students will do the work that's assigned at home if there's something engaging happening in the classroom. And so that is one of the struggles that I do have. Don't bring them here to talk to them if they could have watched you talk to them.
Yeah, and I find that really fascinating, because it's what we used to talk about as the flipped model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also it mirrors the corporate work world,
Mm-hmm.
where you prep, you're ready way in advance of meetings. You better not go to a meeting like totally unprepared with no props. That'd be crazy. And now that's happening in the learning world. It's also dissolving the old structures. The mutation is serious. And we don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. So I'm also really want to say this, because I don't see any other questions coming in. So people, please raise your hands and type in questions in the question panel. We have a couple minutes left. I want to say I'm so proud of you for the organization of files and folders. I know that sounds like minutia, but it is unbelievably important in terms of running sort of a group orientation and keeping your continuity of operation, at least some semblance of order. Because I know I do my filing. I can't even figure out where I filed stuff half the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we really felt, especially from our parents and our students, you know, it's one of those things that teachers take for granted a lot of times, but I tell them it's like going into 7 different worlds. You're going into different galaxies when you go into a different classroom or to a different country. They have a different language, they have different norms, and so in this time of so much other extra, let's just take all that away. Like the student shouldn't have to work harder in one class than another to find their work. It should be easy.
Yeah, and the fact that you took it to the level of every class has these folders, and this is the structure, and then this is how you use Schoology and interaction with that. I cannot underestimate how important that really is, because like you said, navigation is just one more burden on the teachers and the students, and that's just ridiculous. And the fact that you caught that is huge, because I can tell you probably 70% of schools and districts out there haven't caught this yet. They don't really think through UI UX. Administratively, it's the teacher's job, right? You just give it all to them and train them on tools and things, and it's like over to them. And then you have, like you just pointed out, navigational additional barriers that didn't happen in the physical world. Now in the digital world, you've just put these little hurdles all over the place that you didn't realize, most people haven't realized that they're putting there.
Yeah, and one of the things we've really tried to also, I mean, I guess just another thing that the division did a really good job of is backwards design. So saying that we're going to be out for the semester, we know for the year we're going to have to at least cut 30%. There's no way, you can't teach the amount of work that we were teaching in an online environment. Everything takes twice as long. So start off, what are the key things for the first semester that we have to teach? And then how can we pare them down to bite-sized chunks, which are still meeting our desired outcomes for the standards, but aren't overburdening the kids with anything extra, unless they're able to do that. And so that's one of those things that the planning process that went in with every specialist going into every grade level was critical, I think, as well, so that now teachers don't have to think about, well, I'm not going to get here in X amount of time, because they already did that before they even started preparing their classes.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Remarkable. Well, very proud of you for thinking through all of these things, and thank you for joining us today and taking up this time with us.
Well, I'm happy to. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Okay, great. Well, I'm going to move on here, and I'm going to show a little video.
Data. How much are you collecting? What are you going to do with it? Billions of bits of information living in their own separate clouds. Names, numbers, words. What matters? People matter. You are charged with the world's most important mission, educating the future. You focus on that. We'll focus on giving you ownership and agency over the data. Together, we will make it meaningful for your practice. Randa Solutions. Design simply. Develop effectively. We put educators at the center of every system we build, from formative and summative assessments educator recruitment, professional learning, educator evaluations, and licensure. Randa designs, develops, and implements software solutions to empower educators and administrators at every level. Make informed decisions based on timely, accurate information. Randa Solutions, solving data challenges for states, districts, schools, and the people they serve.